Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Yolanda Melody. Why is it that so many people struggle with manifestation? And why are there so many videos out there explaining techniques, tips, tricks, concepts, and yet still there are so many people struggling to manifest a positive life and master the art of controlling what they are seeing in their reality? A lot of people reach this point and they either stop believing in it altogether and think that it's all just a marketing scheme and a scam, or it's a coping mechanism or delusion. And then you get the people who are determined and persistent and they just keep on going and they continue on that path. I am one of those people that has continued on the path. And if you look at the videos on my channel, you could kind of say that I am quite a skeptic. My entire ethos is very, very conspiratorial. I find it very difficult to absorb other people's theories without experiencing it for myself and knowing it to be true. But what I want to talk to you guys about in this video is some recent experiences that I've had that have shifted my perspective completely and hopefully will shift yours as well when you hear this. A huge missing piece to the puzzle when it comes to manifestation is something called states, which is something that I've recently learnt about after this experience that I had. And because I had experienced the extremities of shifting states and what kind of effect it has on your reality very, very quickly, because I'd had that experience and then learnt about it afterwards, I'd heard someone else explaining exactly what this is. It all makes sense now. The concept of states is something that I believe a lot of people just don't talk about, they don't understand. And what I first want to tell you about is the pitfalls that happens with the way that manifestation is spoken about and why so many people just don't get it. I feel so pulled to talk about this because you could look at any problem in life, anything. You can analyze it, you can pick it apart, but when you properly know that your thoughts are creating your reality, you realize that focusing on the problem does not solve it. One thing that I talk about on this channel, which a lot of people don't if they talk primarily about manifestation, is that I do acknowledge that there is a plethora of issues with how this world is run. I'm very aware that our entire system has been created to hinder us and to keep us in a low vibration. Now, because of this, a lot of people are walking around with the perception that reality and its default mode is predominantly negative, right? And if loads of people believe that the default mode for this existence on Earth is negative, because they're so used to this negativity and things not going right for them, they believe that manifestation is this little magical thing that you have to tap into, and that all you have to do is learn a manifestation technique and then suddenly you will start manifesting whatever it is that you want. They believe that they only started creating their reality once they learned about manifestation. And they believe that if you don't know about manifestation and you've never heard of it before, you will just live this negative life. I've said this before in my videos and I will say it again. We are all manifesting 24/7, whether you have learnt about it or not. The default mode is that in this reality, the things that we are seeing are a mirror of what is going on in here. It begins with the mind and then it manifests into reality. Now, before you think that I'm woo-woo when I say this, think of anything that has been created on this earth, anything. It begins, first off, with a thought. Everything that has been built and created by humans first began with a thought. And it was also accompanied by a belief that it could actually manifest into reality. So it's really not that far out to say that we are essentially, each one of us, we are creating our own reality, and that everything does begin with thought. But we must also take into account that because there is so many of us that are all creating different realities, there's a collective manifestation going on. And you can see this with how the media can manipulate people's thoughts to such an extent that you start seeing entire generations of people developing these insane belief systems that to you know are illogical, but you start to see this mass majority of people all adopting this belief system, and boom, reality starts to change. So back onto the subject of states. While a lot of people will talk about manifestation as in you need to just think about your desire constantly and eventually it'll happen, right? There's plenty people that will say that this has not worked for them, and if anything, it's pushed their desire further away from them. The reason being is that the state that puts you in is a state of wanting. The vibe that you're giving off is that you want more and that you don't have what you want. You are dissatisfied, you're not in a place of gratitude, and because of that, because your thought signals are sending out, I want, what you're getting reflected back to you is more reasons why you want more. Does that make sense? Have you ever noticed, if you've ever decided that suddenly you're not happy with your body and you want to go on a diet and you tell yourself that you need to eat less, have you ever felt that suddenly you're more hungry? You want to eat more. That's because all that you're telling your mind is that you want food, but you can't have food. And then what's reflected back and feeds into that is, I want more food, I want more food. Would you believe that there are people out there that are very, very skinny, that can't put on weight? They're desperate to either put on muscle or even fat, and yet it's such a struggle for them because they're telling themselves the opposite. They're saying, I need to eat more. And their body is reacting by actually making them less hungry, sometimes to the point where they struggle to keep food down. Have you ever noticed that when you're struggling for money, you suddenly have this insatiable urge to shop and to spend money? And you keep telling yourself, I can't spend any more money. I need to just not spend any money. And suddenly it's all you can think about is making purchases. Now, the severity of how obvious this is based upon the power of your mind. If you are good at manifesting, you'll understand that the way to get anything that you want is to stop focusing completely on what you don't want. You need to push it to the back of your mind. Push it out of existence. So if I was to put a label on the examples that I've just given, the person who wants to lose weight and tells themselves that they need to eat less is in the state of, I need to lose weight. So then what's being reflected back to them in their reality is that they need to lose weight. It keeps them stuck in this state of, I am not happy with my body, I need to lose weight. Have you ever noticed that when you're on a fitness journey, you start to really, really see results the moment that you notice there's been a little change and that you've actually made some progress? Once you make that little bit of progress, it gets the ball rolling and suddenly it's so much easier to get lean. It's easy to eat well. It's easy to go to the gym because you've shifted states. That's why it happens. You've shifted from, I am unhappy with my body and I have all of these bad habits, into, I live a healthy lifestyle. I am a person who is fit and healthy. This is why a lot of people say that if you want to go on a fitness journey, you have to love where you're at now. And I know that that just sounds impossible for a lot of people. And the mainstream way of explaining that is basically like, oh, just don't try being fit altogether. Like, sack that off altogether. Just be happy where you're at. Full stop. That's not quite how it works. That version of it is missing a lot of context. What I would say to do is love who you are right now, as if you were that greatest version of you. Start feeling that way now. Before the results come, you want to embody being that person. When it comes to the example of the person that's struggling financially and gets this craving to shop, you can be disciplined with your purchases while also telling yourself that you don't need to worry. You don't need to instill this fear in yourself in order to stop spending. The person who is telling themselves, I need to save money, is in the state of, I don't have enough money. So what's being reflected back to them is, they don't have enough money. I have less money, right? Now, obviously, when I explain all of these things, there is action to take. Of course there is. The law of vibration is not the only one. There is also the law of cause and effect, right? You tell yourself, I have lots of money. Even if you need to save money, you want to shift your state into, I have lots of money state. And you want to think about, how would I feel if I had lots of money? Well, first off, you'd feel relaxed, you'd feel content, you'd feel at ease, and you might even feel the feeling of you're winning. And the beauty of this is that when it comes to states, majoritively, all the positive things tend to be in one state, and all the negative things tend to be in another. I'm sure many of you have experienced times where something bad has happened, and then it just feels like a snowball effect where all these other similar negative things all happen at once. That is because most of these negative things are in the same state, and it puts you in this negative state, and then you're attracting things of that ilk. Similarly, whenever you are in a positive state, a multitude of things start to appear that are all positive. You tend to find that if you're doing well financially and you're feeling happy about it and grateful, suddenly life just feels better. Doors start opening all of a sudden. Lucky things happen. People are nicer to you. You look better. You feel better because they're all similar things. I recently went on holiday, and I haven't been on holiday abroad since I was 12 years old. Right? Like with many people, I went on this holiday and I knew that I was going to be there for 10 days, and I thought this is an opportunity for me to relax, to recharge after all the stress. And you kind of make a rule for yourself mentally that because you're on holiday, you just won't entertain negativity because that's your time. And also, you want to make the most of every single second that you're there. During this entire time that I was on holiday, I was completely at ease. I was more relaxed than I've been in such a long time. And my mindset very quickly shifted. I started to notice profound changes in my interactions and look and everything. Every single day I was naturally expressing gratitude constantly because there were so many nice things to look at and absorb, and people are obviously nicer when you're on holiday. It was sunny. There were so many things to be grateful for. And what started happening was I was noticing magical synchronicities. My intuition was stronger. I felt fully tuned in. Similarly, I didn't really watch any content whatsoever. Now, this is a huge thing. Because I wanted to make the most out of my time abroad, I didn't want to waste any of it watching content or even watching films. I was fully absorbed in reality. And I can honestly say that that was probably one of the most positive mindsets I've ever been in. And it felt as though nothing in the world could possibly bother me. Any kind of problems that were lingering, they just weren't an issue anymore. And if I was faced with a problem, I would just simply acknowledge it and then come up with a very simple solution and move on with my day and carry on being happy. Now, when I came back from holiday, like with many people, I started suffering the holiday blues. And I didn't want to fall into that trap, but I did. The moment that I came back to this country, I suddenly found myself complaining complaining about the weather, complaining about the weather. It's shit. It's a really, really big problem. The politics, the mindset, everything that you could possibly think of that is negative about the UK, I was acknowledging it and I was honing in on it. And at first, it was kind of like a joke, like jokingly complaining about the weather. But then very soon, I started to notice negative things were happening in my life, to the point where I really did believe that I was under some kind of demonic attack, and I kept telling myself that it was because of Halloween. I mean, it didn't help, but I'd gone from being in such a positive state where everything was working perfectly. I could not express the level of flow that I felt. It was just like paradise, really. And then the following week, because I stopped expressing gratitude immediately as soon as I came back, and because I was perpetually complaining, suddenly everything started going wrong. Now, a lot of people at this point will say, yeah, well, that's just because you were on holiday. Everybody feels the same way. On holiday, everything's great, and then you come back home and your life's a shit show. No, this is where people get trapped, right? With the hive mind mentality, they don't look deeper into the why. I noticed after this week of negativity and things just snowballing, I suddenly stopped and I was like, I am creating this. I am taking ownership. I'm the one that's being negative. I have kept complaining and speaking all of these negative things, and it is simply now being reflected back to me, but now it's affecting my emotions. So I made a conscious decision to stop the spiral, and it was very, very simple. All I needed to do was to stop focusing on all of the negative things. I mean, if something cropped up that needed my attention, obviously take action to solve it. For example, I live in the countryside and we have a lot of old houses here. And if you live in the countryside, you'll understand that mould is a thing. One of the issues that I had to deal with when I came back was finding that some of my furniture was getting mould because of how dark and damp and humid this country is. And it really did start to upset me after a while. But what I simply did was I used some white vinegar, sprayed it, sorted the problem out, and I stopped thinking about it. Obviously, there was a lot more going on that all happened virtually in the space of a week. And I just simply decided to stop giving it my attention and to start focusing on anything that would make me feel better in that moment, to raise my vibration. Now, what's really fucked up is that we have all been programmed to complain. I noticed this when I came back from holiday and fell back into the slump of trying to find some films to watch in the evening because there's literally nothing else to do. I started watching films and getting really put off, noticing that the script, the characters, the general basis of virtually everything that you watch now, so much of it is teaching people the opposite of what they should be doing. It's like everything is completely and utterly backwards. When you know that you create your own reality, you know that complaining never ever solves the problem. How many people do you know that are serial complainers? They always have something to complain about. I'm not saying that they don't have a tough life. They do, but they make it worse for themselves and they're stuck in a loop. Similarly, I know a few people who literally will not entertain a negative conversation. They won't entertain it at all. It's like they're completely disinterested. And they tend to be more lucky than the average person. What's the link? So if you were to explain that in a state sense, the person who is complaining is in the complaining state. And what is being reflected back to them, what they are being given, is more things to complain about. And what's really terrifying is that most of the world operates in this way. You know, I pay attention to what's going on with politics very at an arm's length, just to see how the agenda is unfolding and what stage we're at in the apocalypse. But with politics, it is constantly people complaining about all the problems, and no one is ever happy. In the UK, we have this programme called Question Time, and it's awful, right? It's so awful. You know, you guys in America, you have more entertaining TV, like more entertaining characters. With the UK, it's so serious and it's so boring. We have this programme called Question Time where they go around the country and they have a bunch of paid actors and stooges in the audience, and they literally just put their hand up and talk about what's wrong with the country. And then the panel pretends like they're going to actually do something and waffles on some crap about how the problem is going to be solved by some politician when it never will be. And you notice that the people who are fully immersed in politics, right, half of them look like they're dying. Like, they're so miserable, and they've usually got a lot of health problems. Like, you just see them and you're like, you are on death's door. You do not look healthy. And they don't have a sense of humour. They've lost it. They're just miserable, quite frankly. And all that they do is complain. And how is their life working out for them? But we're taught that this is how you solve problems. We're taught that humour is not taking things seriously, and that positive thinking is delusional and you should be more realistic, right? But the most successful people in the world, I'm not talking about the dogheads here, I'm talking about icons, right? People like Freddie Mercury. There are people out there that have become so incredibly successful because all they focus on is things that are vibrant and things that give them life, things that are prosperous. And the only way, this is the thing, right? I just want to touch upon this when it comes to the conspiracy community, right? We really need to start thinking of what we actually want the world to look like. And I believe that we need to start focusing on that and cultivating that energy. I do believe that there's a place for raising awareness to an issue. Obviously, it should be very simple though and very succinct. So let's say you notice a problem, right? The first step is awareness. Sometimes it takes longer. If you're trying to get everybody else to raise awareness to an issue, then of course it takes longer than this. But say, for example, you have a personal issue that is completely to do with your life and nobody else's. You recognise the issue, something sucks, you want to change it. Instead of focusing on why it sucks and how much it sucks and how it makes you feel and how miserable you are because the problem is so prevalent, instead of doing all of that, just skip all of that crap, right? Move from, there's an issue, how do I solve it? Oh, that's the solution. Take the action and then forget about it. Once you have took the action that is needed to change something, you shouldn't be looking back. I hope that this made sense. I wanted to fill this video with as many examples as I could to really solidify this concept. But in a nutshell, it is very, very simple. In order to shift realities and change your life, you can do it, and it all begins with the mind. And the real key is having a clear image of what you want, and then literally stepping into that and embodying the idea that you already have it. But when I say the idea, I mean literally convince yourself that you are already there, and you would be amazed at how quickly things start to shift. When I look back at my life, I've done this with so many different things. So I know that this is not bullshit. This is real. And the only people that will tell you that it's bullshit are people that don't really change. Maybe they haven't experienced enough change to see the pattern. Thank you so much to everyone who likes, comments, shares and subscribes. And a special thank you to every single person who donates to this channel. It really does help a great deal. Love you, bye.